Good morning. I am on Clubhouse talking about triggers for a dysfunctional faith. If you are on the app, please over there and you can join the conversation. So, can you have too much faith? Can faith trigger doubt? Let's talk about that. Okay. Can too much faith cause doubt? Whether you are new to health and wellness or a seasoned pro, this show is for you. I am Crystal Arthur. I am your functional wholeness coach, and this is the Functional Faith Show. I started Functional Faith because I once was lost, but now I've found a faith that works with empathy, simplicity, and functional frameworks. My mission is to guide millennials from the fruit to the root of dysfunction, disorders, diagnosis, disruptions, and doubt, to discovering the freedom and fulfillment found in a holistic and healing spirituality. What's holding you back? Are you ready to experience the divine all the time? Then this is the show for you. So, triggers to a dysfunctional faith. I had a lot that I wanted to share this morning, and I decided to table it for the first week of July when we have our functional freedom event, our Freedom Week. The first week of July. It'll be in the Functional Faith group on Facebook, and I will be hosting it as well on Clubhouse. So every morning, the first week of July, we're going to be talking about how to experience more freedom in our minds, in our bodies, and in our spirits. And so, yeah, I had a lot that I was going to share. And I was like, okay, this is kind of layered and deep. So I'm going to table it, especially for the sake of time. I'm going to table it into that week because I think it's just really juicy and really power packed, and I think it'll serve you best in that format. So this morning, I am still going to talk about the topic of dysfunctional faith, but kind of from a higher view rather than getting down into the dirt of it all. And so things that can trigger functional faith. Well, there's three things similar to yesterday. If you joined us yesterday, we were talking about things triggers to emotional eating, right? And we said that not having a plan, having too strict of a plan and too loose of a plan can cause emotional eating or be triggers to emotional eating. And but today I want to talk about how having too strict of a faith, having to or not having a spiritual practice in general, having too strict of a faith, too strict of a spiritual practice, too strict of a religion, or having too loose or too liberal of a spiritual practice or faith or religion can cause uh, dysfunctional faith. So I had to say on the topic as I realized as I was thinking through and kind of writing out what I wanted to share this morning. But I'm going to keep it kind of simple and we'll go deeper at the first week of July. So, not having a spiritual practice can cause dysfunctional faith. Why? Because when we don't have any sort of spiritual practice, so physical realities are reflections of spiritual truths. So when we look at our bodies, right, our bodies need exercise, our bodies need nutrition, our bodies need rest. Likewise, our souls, our spirits need nutrition, need exercise, and need rest. So when we aren't nourishing, when we have no practice of our spirits, when we have, or when we say, looking at the physical body, if we're only eating the same color foods all the time, if we're only eating food group, namely carbs, all the time, that will also lead to malnutrition in the likewise, if we only have one or two spiritual practices, spiritual exercises, or we only nourish our bodies with only one or two sources of spiritual nourishment, then our spirits will be malnourished. Our spirits won't be strong. What does that look like practically? Well, it can look like if you feel like the only way you know to connect with God is through Bible, that can lead to you feeling dysfunctional in your faith because maybe you don't resonate with you able to understand the Bible. Maybe you were told you can only read a certain version of the book and it's hard for you to understand, or it just isn't very life giving to you. Maybe it's just the same perspective that you've already always read from, and you actually glean a different perspective or hear a different word from the Lord, a different version of the Bible text, um, spiritual books, Christian books. I've been in spaces where it's like you're reading all these Christian books, but you're never reading your Bible. And of course, there's benefit to having balance and prioritizing the Bible itself. But maybe that's led to you feeling guilty for reading books that you can actually understand better and actually apply and hear the Lord more through. Um, we don't have to, maybe even you were taught that it's dangerous to read other spiritual texts from other denominations or other religions. It was brought to my attention, and mind you, all of this is completely off the cuff because I scrapped everything that I was going to say this morning to reserve it for our Freedom Week in July. But I was in seminary when a dear friend of mine, who was a spiritual director and she was a peer in the cohort for my spiritual formation program. I was in seminary when she brought to my attention that I had never read books. I grew up in a Black church, but I had never read books. I'd never been assigned books to read by multi ethnic theologians, by multi ethnic men or women of faith. I had actually never been assigned a book by a woman of faith. I had never, so think about that. There's Christianity has been around for thousands of years and throughout the world. And that's my faith is Christianity. And I've never even been exposed to different perspectives, different ways that God has spoken to different cultures, ways that God has spoken to women, right? And there's richness there. There's richness for our souls, richness for our spirits. So when we have no spiritual practice, we're missing out on thousands of years of nourishment, of thousands of years of people finding exercises that strengthen the soul and build resiliency. So the storms of life come, we are not overtaken by that, right? When our spirits are strong and we're walking a well-worn path, then it brings more simplicity, and it can kind of undergird, that is such a religious word, but it can support us along the way. So it's important to have some spiritual practice, right? It's important to have a trellis or a path to walk, a trellis to grow up, or a path to walk forward. But and so it can be dysfunctional to not have one at all, because when we aren't exercising our spirits, when we aren't nourishing our spirits, then we are more susceptible to being overcome by just life. And life is rough, right? And a strong spirit gives us resiliency. So, but what about too strict of a religion, or too strict of a spiritual practice? Well, without going deep into detail, which I will go more into detail in July during Freedom Week. And to register for that, you can just DM me. You can also uh, just join our Facebook group and let us know that's why you're there. But having too strict of a spiritual path can become dysfunctional for our faith, because it can become all about us. And maybe you're not used to hearing that. Maybe you're used to hearing that too liberal of a spiritual path becomes all about us. But stick with me. Too strict of a spiritual path can become all about us, because it's about what I should do, what I shouldn't do, what I should feel, what I shouldn't feel, where I go, where I should So it's too strict of a spiritual path can become dysfunctional for our faith because it's very separate, us versus them, and because it's very strict, um, and it's very about us. How I can experience more peace, how I can experience um, heaven, how will I get to heaven, what I do, what I don't do. And too liberal of a spiritual path can also